Hi, this is Mass Rundown. If you've been enjoying our anime reviews and trailer reactions, why not subscribe and hit the like button down below.
Today we're going to be reviewing The Seven Deadly Sins, Season 1. The Seven Deadly Sins is a 2014 anime created by Nakaba Suzuki.
The Seven Deadly Sins essentially follows Elizabeth. She's a princess of this kingdom, and she's set off to find the Seven Deadly Sins in order to help her save her kingdom from oppression. Although I feel like it becomes a lot more about Meliodas and the gang than it does about them saving the kingdom half the time.
It's almost like a little bit of an afterthought. Like, let's all have our adventure. Oh, and save the kingdom as well, maybe.
Eventually.
Overall, the story is pretty good. It's original-ish. I mean, it's a show in anime. It's got all the tropes you would expect, but still very fun and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. I think the anime is really good. It's not my favorite though, because I still prefer Rising of the Shield Hero. And I think that is because this anime gets a little lazy at times, because sometimes the background isn't necessarily drawn in. For example, the soldiers that were lying on the ground, they didn't even have faces. And I know there's some discussion into that as well, but other background things aren't necessarily always done very well. But it's still good.
The fight scenes in particular are all outstanding. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the fight scenes, and it doesn't matter who's fighting, the choreography, everything is so well put together.
And it suits their characters so well.
Yes.
The thing about characters, I really like all the characters. They're well rounded. There's a story to all of them. They have their own personality. I don't feel like there's a single one of the main characters, and I mean the Seven Deadly Sins and Elizabeth, that didn't have a story arc. So I think it probably is one of the best in terms of that. They also moved quite fast. The pacing was really good. I find in a lot of animes it takes like 10 episodes to do one thing. In this anime they were literally finding a sin basically every episode. It moved really well and I never got bored.
And then for me, the music was epic throughout. The openings, the closings, even the little theme music they had going on. I enjoyed all of it. It was great.
And thinking about sound, I really liked the fact that we watched it in subbed and not dubbed for majority of the episodes. We did watch a few on dubbed, and that was a mistake. The subbed is way better. I don't know if it's necessarily bad, but I don't quite understand why they are in particular the Seven Deadly Sins. Because it's supposed to be some monumental big thing, and it's just like, I haven't seen why they are the Seven Deadly Sins.
I kind of get why they are the Seven Deadly Sins. It does speak to each of their characters very well. From the show, I don't get a big, like they were appointed as these things. It feels more like they just came across the name as they gathered their friends together. And yeah, they got this respect because they're the seven toughest knights in the kingdom.
For me, it felt like there was more this bigger plan on why they were chosen as the Seven Deadly Sins, but we just don't know what that plan is.
Maybe in the future we'll find out how they got the names, the Seven Deadly Sins.
Maybe. I think in terms of characters, I really liked Ban. I thought I wasn't going to like him at first, but the more you watch him, the more you understand him and like him.
I'm a little boring. I always like the main characters in general. Like, Meliodas is... I like his laid-back attitude, where he doesn't really care, he doesn't really want to fight. He'll fight for the fun of it, but he's never going to take any fight seriously. Even the one scene where he picks up that branch, and he's like, we might have to fight seriously, and he like swings it and cuts a rock in half with a twig. Like, he never takes anything seriously, and I quite liked it.
I like Meliodas, not as much as I like Ban. My only problem is his relationship with Elizabeth. It seems inappropriate at times. And as much as I understand that it's not really inappropriate, because she doesn't mind. She's never protesting or saying no or anything like that. So I think something's really inappropriate when someone is, showing that they're not enjoying it in their facial expressions or body movements or verbally telling you to stop. She never does. She thinks it's very amusing, and she even gets a bit jealous when he's not paying a lot of attention to her. So I know it's okay, but somehow it still feels wrong. If he was like that with any other character, I probably would have hated him. But it's only with Elizabeth, so I'm like, okay.
Speaking of Elizabeth, she's a fun protagonist to follow along with, to take us through the show. But she gets a bit whiny, and everything is always her fault. if Meliodas had to stub his toe, she'd go, oh no, why did I get him involved in this? It's all my fault.
Yeah, I feel like that too. She is a bit whiny and a bit sorry for herself too much. So she's not my favorite, but I don't think I dislike her. I think the only character that I really don't like is probably Diane, and I don't even know why.
Diane's fun. I think King is more annoying to me. Something about his character I just never connected with.
I like King. I wish he would be a bit more serious sometimes instead of messing around because he's probably one of the strongest ones there. But to me, he's okay.
And with them coming in very late in the show, Gartha and Merlin, not huge attachments to them yet, but I'm sure as time goes on, we'll see more of them.
And I think Galta feels a little bit like he's on the autism spectrum because he doesn't quite seem to understand people and social niceties.
Yeah.
Even though he tries so hard. So I find him enduring because he tries.
And I think the last of the good guys we have to speak about is the mascot.
I like Hawk. But then again, I always like the mascots.
For some reason.
The worst thing is Hawk is a little annoying at times, but I still really enjoy the character.
I think he just gets a bit too much sometimes.
No, like, if they had to kill Hawk, I'd be sad.
Then moving on to the antagonists, what do you think of Gilthunder?
I like the fact that they gave him a motive for things he does. Because at one point I didn't understand him at all. I'm like, why would you still do that? And then later on they explain it, and I'm like, okay, makes sense.
I thought he was a good bad guy for Meliodas to fight through the show. And you could see the whole time that he wasn't going to be the big bad. He was at the end of it going to be with everybody's friends. And yeah. And the Grandmasters were the main bad guys, but they didn't feel very threatening. I mean, they were tough at the end, and there was that big fight scene, and it was very cool to watch. But didn't seem much of them, and their motivation seems to be, we want another holy war.
No, it's greed and power. And they're getting the power through the holy war. I think for me, in terms of who the bad guys were, it was really more about the institution than the actual people.
The people inside it weren't necessarily bad.
And they were corrupted through the power and the whole holiness of it.
And then drinking demons' blood.
Because that makes sense when you're trying to be holy, but they want the power.
Yes.
Just their motives get very skewed. I just think it's really interesting of the animes I've watched so far that they like to, I want to say, liken it to almost Christianity, because usually the bad guys like this guy with a hat and like popish. And I think it's just weird that they're always the bad guy and the institution is bad in itself. And it just makes me wonder about why is the church always the negative? And I know they don't call it Christianity in the TV shows, in the animes, but they liken it so much that it's really hard not to run a connection through the two.
Well, it's the holy knights, it's grandmasters, it's churches, basically. It's the world itself is basically Middle Ages England.
Yeah.
And it's the 7 deadly sins. So it's hard not to make these connections.
So hard not to. But this isn't the only anime, which is why I find it weird. There's some sort of narrative running through the animes. I think it just speaks to how people can get corrupted with enough power.
The last antagonist to really touch on is the demons. But, like, they were kind of there, but not really. We had the red demon and then the grey demon. And the red demon was just fat, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't really look that threatening.
He looked like the cartoon drawings of demons, you know, these little fat things. That's what it looked like.
And the grey demon we saw dead in a cave, so also like, meh. Maybe going forward we'll see more demons and get more
info on it.
7 deadly sins do what a lot of anime do. They finish the battle, they have their big last fight, they resolve everything, they're on their way on their new adventure, and then they come back so we can have one more episode.
Yeah, I also thought that was weird. The only reason why I can think of it is they may be worried that we're not going to come back and watch season 2 if everything ends off well. So they have to add something to make us feel like, okay, it's not complete.
But then give us something better than everybody chasing Hawk around for half an hour, because that was not enjoyable.
It wasn't my favourite episode, but I like Hawk, so it was okay. I just think it would have been better if it ended like an episode before.
Yes. So overall, is it worth watching?
Yeah, I think it's worth watching. I really enjoyed it. It didn't take that long to watch it. And it's easy to get lost in those episodes because you have to stop when it gets to a point where they've found the sin and they've resolved something. Because if you start the next episode and they start with new sin, then you're not going to want to stop again. Just as far as ratings go, I would give it an 8. Mainly because I gave Shield Hero a 9, and this is not as good as Shield Hero for me.
And season 1, I'll definitely give a 9 because it's just awesome. So let us know in the comments down below who's your favorite sin.
Bye.
Later.